This is the truth about having a Bronco, so I'm gonna de-influence you.
Mazda has started charging a $10 a month subscription service for remote starting your car.
What's the highest car payment you've ever seen?
$2,500 and you can be next.
Alright, we have another car video today, and this one's going to be a fun one. I found a lot of really good clips, and even with the market finally starting to have a downturn, if you could really call it that, we still have a lot of people paying way too much money for their cars. So we have some clips to go over, some stats, and then comments from you guys from the previous video. So if you want to be featured on a future episode, leave it in the comments down below. But of course, you know, we have to start off with the high car payments from the salesman. I do also want to say that this video is made at the end of September, so less than a month ago when I'm recording this. So it's not like I'm pulling these videos out from 2021 at the peak of the market. This is still happening to this day.
Leslie,
Sir,
what do you drive?
Mazda C3, 2019,
What do you pay a month?
700.
What do you drive?
I drive a 2024 Ram TRX,
How much do you pay a month?
$753 a month.
What do you drive?
2021 Charger SXT,
How much do you pay a month?
1100.
Ram 1500,
How much do you pay a month?
800.
I drive a 2019 Silverado High Country.
How much do you pay a month?
Right at 1,000.
What do you drive?
A Ram
How much do you pay a month?
648.
Demetrius.
Yes, sir.
What do you drive?
I drive a 2021 Hellcat Charger,
How much do you pay a month?
907.
I do think it's very interesting that Stellantis as a whole are one of the conglomerate manufacturers that are doing the absolute worst right now, but their diehard customer base just does not care that they will pay ridiculous prices for a vehicle that is now sitting on lots longer than ever. But we'll just get into that a little bit later. We have a comment from one of you guys. My brother works at a dealership as a detailer, and say some people walk out there with $120,000 finance and $2,000 plus monthly payments. I can't imagine that type of money going into a depreciating item, let alone a vehicle. And I think that is a very good transition to the second part of this video from this same dealership.
Grace, what's the highest payment you've ever seen?
$1,784.
Demetrius,
Yes,
what's
yes,
the
sir.
highest payment you've ever seen?
Oh, 2100.
Sheesh. Roy, what's the highest car payment you've ever seen?
It was $1,958.
Jesus. Leslie, what's the highest payment you've seen?
1400.
Hey guys, what's the highest payment y'all have ever seen?
2435.
March?
3,200.
Jesus. What's the highest payment you've seen?
Highest payment I've seen, probably like 1900.
Raul, what's the highest car payment you've ever seen?
2,500 and you can be next.
Okay, first right off the bat, the $3,200 is a mortgage payment on a pretty nice house, but somebody really wanted to get a vehicle. And I mean, I'm hoping, honestly, that it was a very short loan term. It has to be, right? But I don't know. I'd rather pay $3,000 a month for an entire house instead of some random Stellantis car. And then the other thing at the very end, you know, the haha, you could be next. This is exactly what these kinds of videos are made to be for people scrolling on TikTok. You see all of the unbelievable car payments, right? $2,000 plus, $3,000 plus. So when you have the $500, $600, $700 car payment like all of these salesmen do, it's not nearly as bad, right? Even though it's still a ton of money every single month coming right out of your paycheck on a depreciating vehicle. Another comment from you guys, remember, that's the car payment only. Once you factor in gas, maintenance, insurance, the total monthly costs are just ridiculous. We've talked about car insurance going absolutely through the roof for any vehicle across the board now. It's just even worse on brand new vehicles that are getting even more expensive. Between 2020 and 2024, motor vehicle insurance rates rose about 54% in 4 years. But just in June 2023 and 24, the price of personal motor vehicle insurance rose by almost 20%. Additionally, motor vehicle insurers may be raising the cost of insurance due to rising repair costs and lower returns from insurers' bonds. So of course, passing that all right off to the customer. But I do think there is something with the rising repair costs. Now, we talked about it in previous videos with mechanics making YouTube videos talking about it. But when you go and fix your vehicle now, most of the time now, any repair is just a complete replacement of any issue in the car because of the rising technology in all the cars and how many sensors and cameras and electronics are in the vehicle, it becomes way more expensive to just fix something that could have been a minor issue because there is so much wiring and so much more that goes into it now, along with ordering it from a manufacturer that don't supply as many repair parts now because they're really trying to push people to have leases and get new cars over and over again. Really start trying to get people in and out of cars constantly and just be on payments for the rest of their lives. Now, as we have seen in the past couple months, this is finally starting to really slow down on a lot of car lots. People are done paying over sticker for cars that aren't reliable, not really the best quality, especially in the past few years when they just started pumping them out. Especially with the chip shortage, people were buying cars left and right. As long as it had a nice high trim level or looked like a nice new vehicle, people were just taking in all of these crazy car payments. But it's finally starting to slow down now because money is tight.
More and more cars are piling up at dealerships because dealers refuse to lower prices, even though cars are not selling. Price of cars has barely budged. At about $44,000 on average, new cars are only about 3% cheaper than they were at this time last year. Keep in mind that before the lockdown at the end of 2019, it cost around $34,000 to buy a new car. So the price of a new car has jumped by more than 30% in the time in between. Even though the Fed cut interest rates recently, that has not yet translated to cheaper car payments for people buying a new car yet. In fact, last month, the average new car payment got slightly more expensive, costing $734 a month. One more thing to add is that when people are going to the dealership, increasingly they are leasing instead of buying. Leases actually accounted for 25% of all car sales in the third quarter of this year. The bottom line is that the market is unaffordable still, and cars are not going to get moving until prices start moving downwards.
So I mean, I get why people are leasing vehicles. The only problem with that is, as we'll see a little bit later, it just becomes another monthly subscription and you give it back. It's just a rental basically, just getting pushed even more into an entire society where it's just nothing but rentals and subscription models and monthly payments to be able to own the car, or not really own it, basically just use it. And then eventually you have to give it back. So we have another comment from one of you guys. My wife is a doctor and she drives a $10,000 Mazda 3. I'm a truck driver, make $100,000 a year, and drive a $7,000 Jeep Cherokee. We have no payments, and we said we would never borrow money for a car. And I think this is a good transition into, I love putting these clips in because people get so butthurt. We have another Dave Ramsey clip talking about cars, and I don't think he's 100% on the money. I mean, I do understand what he's saying, but people lose their minds in the comments, and I just think it is really entertaining.
You can't live without a car payment. Everybody's going to have a car payment set. Everyone who wanted to stay middle class was born and raised middle class and will always be middle class. The average car payment in America today is approaching $700. 10 months of that is $7,000, which will buy a fine vehicle to drive for a few months until you could save up another $7,000 10 months later and buy a $14,000 vehicle. Y'all with me here?
So if you really paid attention to that clip, the math isn't really the greatest on there, but I do understand what he's trying to say now. We could go over to the comment section, and the first one is, I'll take my new truck and middle class life, because what a lot of the car manufacturers have done really, really well, especially to men, is that they've ingrained the vehicle that you drive with your personality, and that's basically who you are. So you get people in these big giant pickup trucks that maybe, you know, they were construction workers or whatever 20 years ago, when it's not like trucks were super cheap, but then you start seeing all of the modern day pickup trucks and they have to get even bigger and longer wheelbases, and now the interior has to look all super nice, so it's supposed to be some sort of luxurious pickup truck that now costs $70,000, $80,000. But they had that marketing in people's heads for so long that that's who they are. They have to own this truck even though the car payments are pushing $1,000 a month now, and people still believing that is the middle class life, as we've clearly seen cost of living. The middle class has started to become the lower class. So just digging your hole even deeper on a really expensive new truck. And we have another one who got angry, which I've seen is a pretty common argument for just being okay with paying crazy amounts per month for a vehicle. And then you too could be old with money right before you die, and then you never enjoyed the things the world has to offer. Apparently, one of the secret joys in life is paying almost $1,000 a month for a vehicle. It's the justification for owning a new vehicle, especially especially when it's primarily just to keep up with the Joneses, is crazy with people because, as I've said time and time again, I'm not talking to any of the people who could legitimately afford these crazy car payments. Super expensive six-figure cars, right? Doesn't matter if it's a pickup truck, SUV, luxury, supercar, whatever. If you could afford it, this video is not for you. Go buy a $400,000 Rolls Royce, I don't care. But the people who are in the comments constantly trying to justify paying $50,000+ for a vehicle that is way more than $50,000 overall when we start talking about interest, again, something a little bit later in the video, are the same people who will go to my cost of living videos and say, life isn't fair, it's so hard for me to get by, I'm barely scraping by, paycheck to paycheck, when a good portion of their monthly pay is just going into a vehicle that they're most likely not utilizing. How many people have you seen get out of a giant Yukon or Escalade or Expedition and they have maybe one child and all they do is go back and forth and get groceries and maybe take them to school? Probably didn't need that giant, very expensive vehicle. But again, that top tier marketing has really gotten a lot of people in debt because of it. Now, we do have a comment from this video. 7K won't get you a good used vehicle in 2024, Dave. Now, I do actually agree with this. Maybe if we were talking pre-COVID, $7,000 would get you enough. But as we've started to see with the markets, if you start looking vehicles up online, the prices are starting to go down. But that $7,000 has really turned into around $10,000. But we could take a look at some vehicles on sale right now. 2012 Honda Fit, only $7,000 with 90,000 miles. I mean, you have an easy 100,000 miles on this vehicle again. So that $7,000 mark actually does hit with this vehicle. Again, 6,700, 8,500, 9,500. Around this mark, you could still get pretty reliable vehicles. I would say even more reliable than any of the modern stuff now. But people don't really like that this is a 2010 model. This is a 2009 model, another 2010. They want a brand new 2024 so they could be seen driving around a new vehicle. You look like you're making more money than you are, and then when everybody's doing it, it's just keeping up with the Joneses, even though a majority of those people are drowning in the payments. And I mean, I get it. It's not like the whole world could drive around in Civics or Corollas or little tiny Honda Fits. If you do have families, it'll get pretty tight, but I would say if you have 3+ kids, you probably don't need too much more than the RAV4 CRV type of SUV, maybe even like the Pilots. But these giant Grand Wagoneer sized vehicles aren't really necessary for a lot of families. And because you're starting to see those prices at $70,000+, it's just going to end up putting you in a financial hole. Now we're going to be transitioning into a segment that I'm probably going to be putting in regularly in a lot of different topics that I talk about, and that is de-influencing. So we're going to be talking about a few vehicles, especially this next clip that's really popular recently, and people are finally realizing that, especially if you paid over sticker for any of this stuff during COVID, it definitely wasn't worth it for the vehicles that are costing $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 now.
This is the truth about having a Bronco. So I'm going to de-influence you. First, I waited 2 years for this car. Okay, 2 years. I've also only had it for a year. I actually made a quick list of everything I don't like about it. Yeah, when we first got it, they said you could not lease it. You had to buy it. Like I said, the payment. My rear defroster popped off. I don't even know how that's possible. Random things are always popping off. My window sometimes will not go up all the way. I roll it up and it goes back down. Don't even talk about the gas. I spend $100 on gas maybe once every, I don't know, 6 days. Probably less. Oh, the screen freezes. Sometimes it's just black. Like, it's just black. You can't use it. The screen also always disconnects my phone, whether it's in the middle of a call, on CarPlay, when I'm playing music. And then when it disconnects from playing music, you can't play music anymore. Sometimes my music straight up just doesn't play. When the back seats are down and you're driving, it like, squeak, squeak, squeak. It's so annoying. They also don't come with weather mats big enough. I had to buy them off Amazon. You would think in an off-roading vehicle, they would provide what, no. You physically cannot hear anything when you're driving this. Whether that's just down the street. The worst is on the freeway. Nothing is audible. Nothing. I have to physically take my calls off Bluetooth and put them on speaker. And then just driving in general is just very loud. Again, that's just my experience, but I'm actually trying to get rid of this car.
So along with the lack of reliability from the Broncos that have come out, even though it's been wildly popular, I think the new trend has become off-road vehicles, and I get it, they're cool. I'd get a 4Runner even though the gas is horrible. At least the 4Runner is reliable. But all the people buying the Broncos or the Wranglers or a lot of the Jeep vehicles in general have made those prices go up and up and up because there's just more and more trim levels coming out. The manufacturers were getting better margins for just higher trim vehicles, even though it still is an economy car. It's a Ford vehicle, it's a Chevy, it's a Jeep. But in people's minds, when they're starting to pay luxury prices, you know, BMW, Mercedes, Audi prices for these cars, they think it's going to be the same quality as getting an E-Class or a 7 Series or a 5 Series. When it's just not the case and you're realizing that you paid too much money for an off-roader vehicle that also is not going to be super quiet and dampening. They're going to have big tires that are loud on the road. They're supposed to legitimately be for off-roading, but 99% of people don't actually use it for off-roading. So they want a Bronco with the same luxuries as an S-Class because they're paying so much more than you should be for these types of vehicles. And now people are finally starting to realize that, hey, maybe this wasn't really a good deal for all of these expensive off-roaders. And I know that this clip is from a Hyundai, but you could see that the vast majority of manufacturers, this is what the interior looks like. Look, they got the new little iPad screen, so it looks nice and new and futuristic, and it's touchscreen, yada, 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 but still, a majority of it is just a whole bunch of plastic. That sounds terrible, especially if you're driving at high speeds. Maybe it's creaking and squeaking all the time, and you're paying more for those vehicles now compared to any time in the past. We have another comment from one of you guys. My Toyota has 309,000 miles. Wow. It's always the ugliest in the parking lot, and I take that as a badge of honor. Decent cars can still be bought for around 5 to 8K. Save your money because winter is always coming. Another one of the downsides for having a brand new vehicle right now is this comment. It's so depressing to see DLC start to take root in things outside of video games. We know it was going to happen eventually, but it still just sucks. So we could take a look at what he's talking about.
Mazda has started charging a $10 a month subscription service for remote starting your car, which was a feature that was up until very recently free as part of their software package. However, they ended the connected services trial and now charge $10 a month for you to use any of those features. But that's after they killed an open source option. So they killed the free option, rolled out a paid one, and then customers who had already purchased and owned these vehicles, and the right to repair advocates say that car owners should have full ownership of the technology embedded in their vehicles. So they came up with an open source solution for remote starting their car for free, and Mazda sued them to shut it down, which is absolutely wild. Mazda was successful in this too. So I cannot, boy, all of these car companies that do so many of these stories, they're all trying to get long-term revenue from you because just selling an expensive car apparently isn't enough.
So not only are you paying record high amounts for these brand new vehicles, insurance that's going through the roof, and now the features that were initially free with the car, even a few years old, now are getting software updates like it's an iPhone and putting features behind paywalls. Now we saw this with BMW, we saw it with a lot of the luxury car companies, and you know, it's okay, you're spending $100,000 on a brand new Mercedes. This is for the customers that they have that sneeze and wipe their nose with $100 bills. The $10, $15 a month subscription for the heated seats or the high beams or whatever doesn't really hurt their bottom line, but this is Mazda. We're seeing this in Hyundai. We're seeing this in Ford. These are all the normal economy cars now, jumping on board, doing the exact same thing. Really, a $10 a month just to be able to start your car, which is a feature that's been around for a while now. These manufacturers can't really do that with cars that are 10 plus years old. It just doesn't have the technology to be able to do a firmware update over Wi-Fi and literally start taking features away and making you have to pay a subscription for it. Now here we have another comment. We could start talking about interest rates. I used to work at American First Finance. 200% plus interest. Now we're getting into the payday loan and loan shark level interest. We've seen this in some of the credit card debt videos. I remember this guy got some stuff that's $2,000. They wanted him to pay back $19,000, almost $20,000 back. He paid 11 or 12K through settlement, which is still nuts for $2,000. I never had a job that I hated so much. So that is clearly the extreme. If you saw 200% on cars, I don't even know what would happen. There'd be like anarchy or something. But in older videos, we've seen 20 and 30% interest on vehicles, when anything over 10 is just ludicrous, honestly. And I think a lot of those people don't realize how much 30% really is.
So since I made that video talking about how we're trying to normalize $600 car payments, I've noticed in the comments that a lot of people truly do not understand the concept of interest. And I said this in a comment video that I stitched, but I truly think it's because y'all were never taught and y'all had nobody to guide you on the purchase journey.
So I actually do really think that this is true. I think what a lot of people believe is, say you buy a $20,000 car and you have 10% interest. We'll just do very clean numbers. I think a lot of people believe that their monthly car payments, when they're all said and done, with however long the payments were, that they would be paying back $22,000, 10% interest on $20,000. And that is not how it works. So we could use this vehicle as an example. This is a 2024 Gladiator. I'm just using it mainly because it's around the $50,000 mark, even though the MSRP is almost $60,000. That's how bad Stellantis is doing right now. A brand new Gladiator. They're taking off thousands and thousands of dollars and it's still not selling. But we could go down to the customize your payments tab. Now, initially here, your credit score, excellent. So we'll just say that everybody who's going to be doing these payments have almost perfect credit, which is not the case, but we'll leave it for that right now. We're at $1,000 a month, no down payment for 72 months. So $50,000 car, let's say we put $5,000 down. That 72 months is still just about $900. And I mean, anything less than that, you could see how much this grows. 3 years, $1,600 a month for a $50,000 car. Let's even put $10,000, 20% down on this car. Again, around $15,000. If you drop it all the way to 72 months, still $800 a month. Again, excellent credit. You get any worse, then it's $840. The average credit jumps to $1,000 a month. We could go nuts, $1,600 a month. So if you just want to do rough math with exactly what this is, with $10,000 down, you don't really have the best credit, which is what we've seen a lot. People will not really have the best financial responsibility, but they'll still end up getting a very expensive vehicle because it's a muscle car or it's a nice off-roader like the Jeeps or an SUV, whatever, right? Well, if it's about $1,000 a month for 72 months, you end up paying $72,000 for a $53,000 vehicle. But when you go right under the monthly payment, so based on estimated car price of $53,000 at a 14.5% rate. Again, 14 is still pretty bad, but we'll just say 14.5% of $53,622 is a little bit over $7,700. So in total, you'd think you'll be paying around $60,000 in total, but you'll actually be paying $72,000. You lose an extra $12,000 right off the top because people don't really know how interest actually works. Now we have a comment from this video. The way you beat interest is pay extra every month paid towards the principal. Now, I do understand that, but if you start looking up TikTok information on how to pay off your vehicles quickly, you could get into this gray area, especially with this video that went viral, got a ton of views.
If you have a car payment or you're planning to have a car payment soon, please listen to this. I bought my first car, had to take out a loan and everything recently. And when I was there, the car salesman actually taught me a fucking hack. He told me to pay half every 2 weeks instead of paying in full once a month. This is the most basic fucking hack ever, but I cannot fucking explain the difference it has made. My first initial payment when I first bought my car, that first sum you pay, I pay that in full. I didn't pay obviously every 2 weeks because it was my first payment. 80% of it went to interest and 20% went to my principal. And now that I've been paying every 2 fucking weeks because it knocks off the interest like crazy, 80% of my money goes towards the principal amount of my car payment. Do you fucking understand how much money I am saving?
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, I have zero knowledge with this. I just ended up paying off the car, not doing any of the half payments or whatever, but when you start going into the comment section, it is very 50-50 on what the experiences of other people are. You do have the people saying that it works. I love making my car payment every 2 weeks. I do this and it's $440 payment a month. I split it twice, $220. Okay, so from those comments, it seems like it works, and then you see other people. I tried paying like this with my previous car and it got repoed. They claimed they never received full payments. They put them in all as half payments instead of combining them to be full. Yeah, my bank doesn't allow this. This person has to pay more than the monthly note just to put it more towards the principal. So I'm not telling you guys what to do. I have no knowledge on this situation with the half payments trying to pay down the interest faster. Maybe it works for some people, but I don't want you to get repoed like this lady. So maybe dig into it a little bit more instead of just taking a TikTok at 100% face value, especially when it comes to car payments. Don't want you to get stranded and repoed. Now we have a comment from one of you guys. American car culture is insane. Suburbs are death zones for walkability, and most cities have terrible public transit. Paying $700 plus a month for any car payment is diabolical. Now, I do understand what they're saying with the suburbs and rural and city areas. I get it. A good portion of the people in cities don't have cars, partially because it's so expensive to actually own one. Because on top of the crazy apartment prices, you have to pay for a spot to park your vehicle, and that could be very expensive, along with the terrible roads that they normally have. They will destroy your car. All of these stop and go traffic really deteriorates the engine even more, so they don't last nearly as long. But overall, the transit in a lot of cities is also very poor, so it's very difficult. A lot of people end up walking around. That's why you see New York being so packed all the time. At least for my personality, I am not a city person. I am in between the suburbs / rural area. I don't want a million houses packed next to me and there's tons of people in all their single family homes, but at the same time, I don't want to be out in the middle of nowhere, because it does start to freak me out if you could just see the horizon. It's nothing but hills and grass and there's no other people. So I'm in that happy medium there. But for both rural and suburban living, there is no walking then. The only option is buying vehicles. So at some point, whether it's a used or new vehicle, you're going to have to shell out a lot of money to be able to move around really anywhere. And I mean, it's just a problem that's not going away anytime soon. So I'm just going to end this video off with this clip.
This is my first video on Deinfluencing and telling you that you don't need a nice car. I drive a 2007 Jetta. It's not perfect, but it gets me around and I love it. I paid $4,000 for it in 2018. It still feels like my baby. It was the first big purchase I have ever made and I cherish it. I keep it as nice as I can. I clean it out. I take care of it because it's mine. You don't need the brand new car just because you're older or just because you make more money. I love this baby and I'm running it into the ground. Also, no one cares what car you drive or is going to look down on you if you have a less nice car than them. If they do, it's probably someone you don't want to be around anyway.
So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. YouTube thinks you'll like this video popping up on screen right now. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and I'll talk to you guys later.